Thank you, Well. We came to Doha with low expectations, but those low expectations got even lower. Any government walking out of these negotiations saying that this was a success is suffering from a terrible case of cognitive dissonance, where the reality is telling us we are running out of time. The science is telling us we need much greater ambition, and we have to call this as a substantial failure. All we're seeing is baby steps in a positive direction. Our governments have to now recognize that the science is non-negotiable. We cannot change the science, and they have to align the political reality of these conversations with what the science actually says. So, to support everything that Sam said, but just to add a few things to it. Firstly, on finance, we have to look at the question of political will here. It's interesting that yesterday, in the United States, it was reported that the cost of reconstruction in New Jersey alone is 60 billion plus. It's ironic that's the same amount of money that we were trying to actually garner for the entire developing world to help them to actually cope with the crisis. We also will remember at this point that the United States spends more just on the military marching band as part of their military expenditure than 60 billion a year. Where is the priority when in fact even the CIA and the Pentagon has been telling that the biggest threat to peace and security is not going to come from conventional threats and from terrorism, but is going to come from the impacts of climate change that we are seeing in my continent, Africa, already. So on Kyoto, yes, we managed to defend a second commitment period, but it is so weakened that in fact it does not give us any joy that we can get the changes that we need now. Our governments must realize that this failure is a betrayal of the people in the Philippines and around the world that have faced climate impacts now, today, and will continue in the days to come. But what is at stake here is not some ethereal thing called the planet, the climate, the environment, but what is at stake here is selling down our children and grandchildren's futures. Lastly, I would say that in terms of the big prize of getting a fair, ambitious and legally binding climate treaty by 2015, and remind ourselves that the science actually said that in fact we had to get emissions to peak in 2015. When we went to Copenhagen, that was the prize that we were looking for, what we called a FAB deal, a fair, ambitious and legally binding deal, which in fact, as Alden and others have said, we didn't get a FAB deal in Copenhagen, we got a FLAB deal, full of loopholes and bullshit, right? And we have the same bull coming out of here, and I think the main message we have to take from Doha is this. Yes, we support the multilateral process. Yes, we want it to work. But if the people of the world, and particularly young people in the world, actually think that they can invest their futures on a multilateral process which is held back by the weak national political will that negotiators bring from their capitals to these negotiations, then they are making a bad tactical error. So if there's one thing that we as civil society have to take away from this, is we have to intensify the constituency and the movement to push for urgent climate action. We will have to think about the proportionality of our investment in terms of how much we put here, which I think we will continue to be engaged, but we have to put now more energy in terms of building a robust, broad-based movement. And I just would like to close with a challenge now to parts of society that need to be here with us. And I think we are very happy that the International Trade Union Confederation stands with us. As Sharon Burrows said to Ban Ki-moon, we support action on climate, even though our primary purpose is to work for decent jobs, because the trade union movement recognizes that there are no decent jobs on a dead planet. I want to name a particular constituency here. I want to make an appeal to our religious leaders. They have to step forward and provide a stronger voice to urge action, because the bankruptness of leadership from this negotiations and from the most powerful national capitals is not there, and we have to recognize this fight is bigger than all the fights of injustice combined that we have to face, and the biggest message we have to take is that we would have to intensify our resistance, and to young people in particular, I will say to you, don't accept that you are leaders of tomorrow, assert that you are leaders of today. Don't bank on this bunch of adult leaders who are the biggest losers you're going to find anywhere on the planet, and get your act together, get organized, and take leadership, because while we're talking about fossil fuels, ending up fossil fuels, young people must realize there's a whole lot of fossils sitting in the negotiations as well. Thank you.